going to start with Iowa because Purdue this year, sorry guys, you're not going to be a contender, I don't think, in the Big Ten West, so we can't start.
We can't say that for sure, man. It's the Shadow Realm.
Well,
it's the Shadow Realm.
For all we know, Northwestern could be hoisting that trophy at the end of the year.
For the purposes of this preview, we're going to start with the most contendery of the contenders in both these seasons, and that was Iowa. Shout out the Hawkeyes. You guys had maybe the most unimpressive 8-5 schedule in the history of college football. The story here is Kirk Ferentz is in his 25th season. That's great. One of the, all-time best, names, most tenured coaches in college football. Brian Ferentz, on the other hand, the offensive coordinator, he, as far as I can tell, has the first recorded pitch count put on him by an athletic director who's no longer there, actually. He's since stepped down. But Brian Ferentz, the offensive coordinator and son of Kirk, if you didn't already connect those dots, in order to keep his job, has to score 300 points this season. Now, that's the team. That's not just the offense, but the team has to score 300 points this season. That equates to 25 points a game, and they have to win at least 7 games. So with that in mind, and I think of a fundraiser, tracker where you've got the pot at the bottom and then you go up in 300. It's the top of the chart. All season long, we're going to be penciling in, coloring in the red lines till we get to 300. With that as the backdrop, let's dive into the Iowa preview. With this nugget, since 2017, guys, Iowa is 39-2 when they score at least 24 points. So just a point below what they need to average for Brian Ferentz to keep his job. They almost win every game. When they don't, they're 12-21. So Iowa, despite having this reputation for not scoring a lot of points, it's essential to their success. As good as that defense is, they need to score at least 24, 25 points, not only to keep their offensive coordinator around, but to be an unstoppable force in the Big Ten West as well. Offense looks sort of new this year, specifically at the top. Cade McNamara comes over from Michigan after he lost his job to J.J. McCarthy. He's recovering from a knee injury and knee surgery. So the question is, will he be healthy this season? They think he should be ready for week 1, but, in sports, you kind of never know. Running back room is going to be fun. Caleb Johnson leads that room. He broke Iowa's freshman rushing record with 779 yards last season. He's a really fun playmaker. I think he's going to be on full display in year 2 in Iowa City. Caleb Brown, an Ohio State transfer, comes over. They've also got Seth Anderson coming in from Charleston Southern. So you've got big-time playmakers who are joining the wide receiver room. The issue is behind them, there's really nothing. They're very, very thin in the wide receiver room. So you got 2 big names. Luke Lackey comes over. He's the only Hawkeye to catch multiple touchdowns last season. He's the tight end. What kind of impact does he have at a program that's notorious for being tight end U? Defensively, Joe Evans has been tabbed as the Lucas Van Ness replacement in the pass rush. Evans is a very, very good-looking pass rusher. The question is, can he have the kind of production that Lucas Van Ness showed? And Van Ness wasn't even a starter last year. So I kind of lean to thinking, I think he could, with enough starter reps, Evans will be a starter this year. Nick Jackson is the biggest name that joins this Iowa defense. Again, a defense that is very, very solid year in, year out. They produce one of the best defenses in the entire country. Jackson is a Virginia transfer, as you see on the graphic if you're watching on YouTube. He brings 354 career tackles with him, and he should be kind of another captain on this defense. They've also got a couple of really fun defensive commits on the defensive side of the ball. Ben Keeter, Khalil Tate, they're really, really excited about linebacker, safety, respectively. And then Cooper DeJean, certified star at the cornerback position. He's probably going to have a tremendous year anchoring that secondary for the Hawkeyes. So as we zoom back out, I think the team's strength is the defensive line. Phil Parker believes that this is the best week 1 unit he's ever had across his front 4, which is really exciting for Hawkeye fans. The problem is is that offense going to be able to score? It's the true same question we ask year in, year out about Iowa. The team weakness for me is the wide receiver depth. They barely return any catches with guys who are currently on the roster. My ceiling for Iowa currently 10-2. I think that's generous, but the schedule's not terrible. We'll get into that in just a minute. I've got their floor at 7-5. I think this is if the offense really sputters. We don't meet that 25-point benchmark. We start having to hand out some pink slips. For me, I'm going to predict that they go 8-4. So Garrett, as I ask you, where do you sit on this Iowa team? There's certainly some promise on the offensive side of the ball, but it is just promise right now as we sit in the preview era.
Right. Look, Iowa fans, this is where I'm going to buy some goodwill. I'm pretty high on what Iowa can do. I'm not thinking that they're going to be an explosive offense, okay? When you look at some of the offensive numbers that we have, nothing about these offensive numbers scream that this year we're going to have an amazing offense, right? Everything there is in the bottom 10. I mean, you have the red zone percent technically, but I mean, they get the red zone like 3 times last year. They weren't very good on offense last year. When I try to look at this and break this down, I think that Cade McNamara is going to be a difference maker, not because he's going to be an elite quarterback, but just because I think he's going to be able to bring a stability to that position that Iowa hasn't had in a while. I don't think that you can really say that Iowa's had real stability at that position in a little bit. They certainly didn't have it last year. Last year, I mean, it felt like every time I turned on an Iowa highlight or any sort of switch the channel, let's go watch Iowa for a minute, I just found myself going, oh, you knucklehead, you bonehead, what was that? And, just kind of asking, like, what is he doing? Right. And that's, I don't know. I don't understand the way that they were coaching the quarterback. Now, again, maybe it's just time for Ferentz to hit the road and, he's just not a very good OC. I don't necessarily know that I believe that. I do think that the 300-point threshold is something they can hit this year. I think that they should be able to. I think the running backs are going to be really fun. I like Caleb Johnson a lot. Talked about him in an article I wrote recently for the transfer portal. And so I think that'll be a lot of fun to look at. And look, all you need is a little bit more stability, just kind of a level head in the huddle to keep everybody on the same page. They'll be able to score some points this year, especially after, and I got to think this is true, especially after an off season of everybody ragging on them, everybody saying they can't score, everybody saying the final score is going to be like 4-3 because they're going to get 2 safeties somehow, right? After an off season of that, I think that there's enough guys in that locker room that have a little bit of pride to play for, and I think that they're going to turn it up a little bit. I'm by no means saying that Iowa's going to be an elite offense, but I do think they can have a middle-of-the-road mediocre offense when, with that defense, a mediocre offense can go a long way. I personally pick them at 10-2. I think that they're going to take care of a whole lot of business there. I don't think that they're going to necessarily sweep through the schedule with ease, but I do think they'll do a lot more grinding it out winning than they have in the past.
Well, and here's the thing about Iowa, because we can the jokes write themselves about their offense last year. We don't have to rehash that again. You look at the offensive ranks that we highlight on our show here, they're mostly in the triple digits. The one thing that they broke out of the triple digits on was red zone scoring percentage. But let's say, this might be a big if, let's say that they hit that target. Let's say that they hit 25 points per game. What is their record this year? Because with 17.7 points per game, just a historically bad offense last year, they still won 7 games in the regular season and they won a bowl game against an SEC team. Like, that historically elite defense paired with a historically bad offense, if they get the offense right and they hit that target, 25 points per game, 3 touchdowns and a field goal per game, give or take. What's their record this year in y'all's mind?
Well, I mean, Garrett said 10-2. I actually have a disclaimer. I said 8-4 just a second ago. I have 9-3. Upon further review,
that's assuming they hit that goal.
Correct. Upon further review, I have him at 9-3. Look, the schedule is very, very workable this year, guys. I mean, Utah State at home, Iowa State, they're probably going to stink again. Western Michigan, you're 3-0. You head to Happy Valley. I think that's a tougher game than what many may look at on the schedule and immediately give that to Penn State. I think Iowa's offense is going to be improved. And if we're looking at this schedule, assuming they hit that point total, I think it's a close game. I think it's one that Penn State wins, but okay. So you're 3-1. You get Michigan State and Purdue at home. You go to Wisconsin. We'll talk about the Badgers in just a minute. You get Minnesota before finally getting a bye. I think by that point, Iowa might be a little bit worn down. So for me, I have Wisconsin and Minnesota as two more losses on their schedule. But then after the bye week, you're telling me that they don't run the table against Northwestern, Rutgers, Illinois, Nebraska. Illinois is the pluckiest of those 4 teams, and you've got them at home. So I think as long as you don't drop a game you shouldn't, and maybe you view that Wisconsin game or that Minnesota game as a game that you shouldn't, that's how you get to 10-2. But, you know, I think that it's a very favorable schedule for the Hawkeyes this year. It is not crazy to think that they could win the Big Ten West.
Yeah, and for me, my 10-2 has them losing their last game at Camp Randall. I think having to go to Penn State and to Wisconsin, that's tough. Right, that's tough for pretty much any team to have to do both those games on the road. But that game against Wisconsin, I think, is their last loss of the year. I think they're going to bounce back against Minnesota, get a nice bye week, and then run the table on their way out. And you know they're going to be pissed about that Nebraska game too. They're going to be ready to go in there, ruin their year, just right in your eye hole type of thing, right? Just ready to go against the Cornhuskers after what they did to them last year. I think that they're going to be ready to go. And so, yeah, I've got them at 10-2. I think they're going to be a lot better on offense. I think they're going to be really, really good on defense as well. And I think they're going to end up making that 25-point margin. 25 points. What was it last year? They gave up like 13 points a game last year. If you can score 25 this year and keep it anywhere near there, you're going to win most of your games.
Yeah, I mean, this Iowa team should take a big step forward. I think having a average quarterback. Listen, Spencer Petras was just not average last year. He just wasn't good. I think you have an average quarterback this year plus a solid running game. To me, like I said, the biggest question is at wide receiver, but I think that defense is going to come to play, and I really do like the Hawkeyes' chances at being interesting this year.
Gracious, how about that?